Hi there, this is Venkatesh Mudaliar on the third episode of the podcast. So, the topic I have today is something kind of conceptual and philosophical, that is happiness. I'm not capable to comprehend the boundaries for it, and I don't intend to do that. I'm here just to share what I feel about happiness as an individual here. This is completely a personal take on happiness and my idea of how it goes with me. What is happiness? No, I don't intend on going into some real philosophical or analytical or esoteric side in the quest of finding the answer for it. I honestly don't know what word I can use to describe the difficulty in describing the word happiness itself. Abstract or conceptual is the word I find most appropriate for describing my take on happiness as an emotion. Happiness can be described as a method of evaluation for well being and prosperity. It can also be described as the psychological aspect of feeling. In this episode, I would like to discuss more on the psychological form. At the very crude form, personally, I think happiness is merely a state of mind as a consequence, coming off as an experience or an ongoing process in life or any such movement happening in your life. The thing is, the boundary of such things which make us feel happy does change and expand over time. That is, with time, these things and the people making us happy do change. When we treat happiness as a mental state, the term happiness feels quite hyperbolically bloated. After all, if it's a plain emotion, it can be easily played around and manipulated with. When I observe stuff around me, people around me, and the way they define their idea of happiness as not only an emotion but an experience, I couldn't help but wonder how my definition contends with the definitions of those people. The way I see it, life seems so fast paced and unabashedly dynamic right now. The mind constantly stays occupied in the to do list we frame for ourselves. Most of the weekdays, it becomes difficult to even get some spare time off for oneself and to compose oneself. I am in no way critiquing or criticizing the way others deal and progress with their life. After all, they have their own stories going on. But being so tied up to the activities we are bound to do and follow, an activity, a different kind of activity might come into picture, providing a sense of spontaneous action, like going out for a trek or a trip with friends or alone. At the base, any activity other than the routine regular one turns out to be a kinetic and a thrilling experience. It's not often bound to just activities. Each different soul has their own way to introduce this kind of thing into their daily routine life. This forms the core for hedonism. Hedonism, in short, is a thought cycle which focuses on maximizing the happiness and minimizing sorrow of any sorts. It principally focuses on treating the quest for happiness and pleasure to be the goals with utmost importance and priority. I am neither a fan of this theory nor do I criticize it. My encounter with happiness in both ways, that is, happiness as a mode of evaluation and happiness as purely a psychological state, has been quite interesting. So it's obvious that nothing stays stationary. We have our ups and downs. Each point at both the peaks does shape our thoughts and the way we perceive everything in correspondence to it. The way we handle our grief or rage when we are at the bottom, the way we enjoy the glee and the cheer when we are high on happiness, they contribute towards the kind of person we turn out to be. But I'm more interested in exploring the nature of the glide between two extremes. Sometimes it's smooth, and at times it gets bumpy. Most people don't enjoy emotion through the period of sorrow or disappointment that is at a low point. But given the set of emotional responses, a person tends to enjoy happiness as whole. It provides some kind of self assurance, some kind of soothing. Of course, given the basic human trait, everyone longs for that warmth and serenity coming out together with happiness, which itself comes from varied constructs. But of course, it doesn't stay constant, right? Now, I don't mean we are constantly swinging between the high and low here. We spend a considerable amount of time and energy in the neutral state as well, where we don't have anything going on. We are neither sad nor happy. The point is, when an individual is happy and enjoying the glee established in that zone, the person expects and wishes hard for it to stay for as long as possible. But that's often not the case. Happiness often ends with disappointment coming off from pure craving. That for me itself puts the nature of happiness in question. For me, I don't find a lot of difference between getting a feeling of delight, being high on something, and getting a feeling of joy when something works out well for an individual. It just seems like an outcome of a thing working out well or serving well. The thing which confuses me is why does the same individual want the low zone, that is, the gloom, to end soon? Of course, it's an emotion and no one really wants to deal with the pain, but why is the question here? I mean, I am a normal individual. When I'm at a low point in my life, just like any other soul, I want it to end fast. I too hope for a new day with a new beginning. But when I spent some time really getting the feel of pain as an emotion, I realized something. Pain has more layers than its counterpart, happiness. Happiness seems like a unidirectional emotion as a whole. It just feels like a single sentiment with not many variations at play. The mind is at peace and doesn't want to bother itself much. It tries to live in the moment, probably savoring each composite second passing by, which later turns out to be a memory. And that memory, in small dosages, gives a sense of momentary comfort. I find it hard to rely on memories as my source for peace or composure. However, when it comes to pain, there's so much going on in the background. Different feelings originate from a single point, like a small light or a small fire disseminating varied feelings pertaining to melancholy. I don't intend on discussing the dark side here. I'm just fascinated by the diverse nature of emotions coming off after probably hitting a rock bottom or at a stage of grief. That puts the mind in a state of commotion. Commotion comes in from the loss of control over things, and more than often it's the case that people or an individual often wishes to control the outcome, possibly trying to make it turn in their own favor. So when an individual experiences lack of controlled regulation, it becomes hard to handle the chaotic consequences. People often tend to avoid that zone because they don't want to feel helpless and unclear. I personally felt that it was that very dejected zone when the brain is in such a state of volatility, it runs in divergent and distinct directions. So, if you let the chaos run its way, you just might stumble across something amazing which might even redefine your priorities entirely. Given some patience to actually stay in that psychological state, you could actually think some things, realize some facts, understand what needs to be done, even in a more clear way, which you wouldn't have bothered exploring staying in the complacent territory of composure and happiness. I am in no way interpreting happiness in any single way. I'm just conveying what I thought about it. Of course, I'm just reading a very, very small portion of the abstract concept here, but I really felt from the phrase going through ups and downs, the down zone is extremely underrated and undervalued. I think it's when we figure out a way to handle the pain in more elegant and graceful way, if we figure out a way to actually enjoy the chaos, we might be making the best of the both extremes. And I think that's the best thing one can try to do. So just humor me here, give it a try. Next time you're down or low, try to feel each second passing by rather than just accepting that frame of mind. Try to experience the brain and heart running at all the possible course of actions. Try to walk with it. Try to feel the chaos and the disorder. After all, that's also an experience worth experiencing. That's all for this episode. I'll see you in the next one.